All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a look at this week's case study, Ditto. Now, in English, the word ditto means if you repeat something, right? Like if you say, let's go and get coffee, and I say ditto, it's just a word that indicates a repetition of a previously made statement. So that's the basis of that. So now we're starting here with a quote. You gain strength, courage, and confidence by every experience in which you really stop to look fear in the face. You're able to say to yourself, I lived through this horror. I can take the next thing that comes along. You must do the thing you think you cannot do. All right, let's see what this case study is telling us. Now this week, because one of the goals we're trying to get to in this course is to learn different ways to analyze, read, and listen and think critically, see what's there, and see what is not there, which perhaps should be there. So this week, I'm going to encourage you to use Microsoft Word. If you have it, some people don't have Word, although you can actually get it for free as a student, but I'm going to assume we all have Word here, and I'm going to show you some techniques that I might use to analyze a document. So we're saying now, in 2013, Kate Dorson, founder and CEO of a company called Ditto, was faced with a difficult decision. 3 years earlier, she had started Ditto, which is an eyewear commerce company with advanced virtual fitting technology. So I guess that's their unique selling proposition. Despite encountering many obstacles along the way, she had successfully launched the business, and her vision for the company was becoming a reality. However, now a number of lawsuits, let's see what's going on with that, threatened to destroy everything she and her team had built, and she needed to decide the next action to take. So what we're going to use now is a facility in Word, which lets us create things like a table of contents as well as a table of references. So let's go here to References up in the Word menu. And I'm going to start highlighting some things, and I'm going to drop those as references. Then at the end, I will ask Microsoft Word to generate a table for me. And the purpose of that is to just create like a little quick reference of all of your key reference points. Now you could do this in Trello, right? You could do it in other tools. This is just a tool I'm going to show you for right now, because the ability to generate a table of references or an index or a table of contents could be quite useful if you're summarizing a business document, right? So I've selected some text here. Now I'm going to go to the option which lets me make an index. You know what an index is, like at the back of the book. It is the sort of listing of all the key topics and what page they're on. So I'm going to go here and say mark entry. And I could rename it if I wanted to. I will just say mark. In fact, I could say mark all if there were numerous references to the same text string in the document. Now, one little trick people get confused by, they sort of see all these little funny symbols and they worry they've broken their document or something. Those are just markup tags in Word, so you can always go and turn those off again later, right? We'll see how to do that. In fact, if you go here to the Home ribbon in Word and you see that little thing that looks like a musical symbol, it's highlighted now. If I click on it, it makes those symbols go away. So she had launched her business, her vision for the company. Well, we don't know what that is yet. We have to figure that out, and they're having some lawsuits. So those are our main issues now. So let's go up here to the top of our document, and maybe let's make a little summary table of key issues and concerns right within Word. Right, so again, this isn't too fancy. You can just make like a table or something. You don't have to do this. I'm suggesting that it might be a useful thing to do, especially at work. If you're dealing with a lot of documentation, maybe as a project manager or something, it's something that helps you organize your work. I'll put a table in here. And now I'll do another thing called split view. So I'll go to the view menu and I'll say split, and that just lets me see top and bottom simultaneously. And I'm going to go and turn off my menu so I have more screen real estate. Now, a little trick in Word I'm sure you've seen is you can select something, and then if I press the Control key and I click and drag with left mouse button, it makes a copy without removing the original thing that I'd had there. Now, I don't really know what I might put in these other columns of the table, but I might come up with some comments to make later, so you can add or remove columns as you're going forward. And let's save our work, so if computer locks up, we don't lose our work. So 3 years earlier, she had started Ditto, an eyewear e-commerce company. So I guess they maybe take prescriptions for glasses and then they mail the glasses or the contact lens back to the customer. Now, as somebody who wears glasses myself, I'm not sure if I'd really be comfortable with that, because one of the main jobs the optician does, they put the glasses on your face and then they adjust them, they twist them around, they bring them in and out, they check that it's fitting comfortably and your vision is correct. So I'm not really sure if this would be a good candidate for an e-commerce company, but it's what Kate did, so let's keep going forward. All right, so they had lawsuits, right? So we don't really know what's going on with these lawsuits. So I'm going to start a column in my table here. And as I come up with issues relative to these lawsuits, maybe I'll start summarizing them down here. So that's one of my issues, the lawsuits. In fact, I'm guessing it's probably going to be the major issue. So early in her life, Dorkson knew she wanted to be an entrepreneur. She majored in studying entrepreneurship at university. She built a business plan for HooplaRecruiting.com, online recruiting for college sports. In 2005, she graduated with the angel capital she needed to found Hoopla. So angel capital, right? People who have money but no ideas hook up with people who have ideas but no money. And then the investor will provide capital and own a piece of the business if it becomes successful. A couple of months later, her entrepreneurial career was placed on hold when she was drafted into the basketball, right? So I guess she's a pretty good athlete. She got her shot to play pro basketball. She shut down Hoopla, returned the funds to the investor, and moved to Connecticut after a few months in the basketball game. She was cut from the team, so maybe she wasn't really that good after all. Well, I've never played basketball myself except fooling around on weekends, so I can't criticize her for that. From there, Dorkson was recruited to an investment banking position at Citibank. Having lived in Indiana all her life, she was excited to go to New York, so she took that position before returning to entrepreneurship, and she learned a lot, right? She discovered her passion for the retail industry. Good for her. After her 2-year contract at Citibank came to an end, she moved to Chicago to join the private equity firm Wind Point Partners. Now, I'm not analyzing this stuff a lot because I don't really know if this has a relevance to our case study about the lawsuit and about Ditto. But maybe it's some background, maybe to let her know kind of what experiences she's had that made her to create the kind of decision she did. So she worked as CEO. She worked for the CEOs of several retail portfolio companies. This experience gave her the experience she felt she needed to pursue her own business startup. After 2 years with the firm, she applied to Stanford Graduate School of Business to gain some business skills. And she says here, I can remember very clearly a good friend of mine worked at the private equity firm with me. He loved his job, and I watched him zipping through the financial model excitedly, trying to figure out the return. I thought, wow, I do not feel like that about this work. It's time I realized that I was born to be an operator. I had to go build something myself, she thought. All right, well, let's see where that took her. So, in September 2009, Dorkson arrived at Stanford with a clear goal, starting a business in e-commerce. Dorkson was eager to address some of the issues she had seen over and over in her past jobs. So here are some of the issues related to basically any kind of a business, but issues related to an e-commerce business. So huge inventory, right? You have to carry stuff. You have to sink money into product and hold on to it till somebody buys it. And you have to hope the market doesn't change and maybe, that product you're holding on to isn't in demand anymore. You have fixed costs such as rent, building maintenance, staff, right? Maybe vehicles or computers or other stuff you have to buy and maintain. Tough working capital cycle. So that means the time, let's say if I buy a product till the time I sell it and make some profit, how long is that? Might be a month, might be a couple of months or a year. I have to pay interest and financing charges on that money, and that's what we call the working capital cycle. High product returns, meaning people aren't happy, they return the product. So you not only did not make any money, you actually have a net loss processing the return. And excess merchandise. So you might have stuff that people aren't buying. What do you do with it? Well, it's a big problem for companies like Amazon. So Dorkerson saw the potential for a different type of retail company, and she wanted to build it to address these problems that she had seen other people having. Dorkerson spent most of her... Sorry, there's no C there, is there? Dorkson? Sorry, I was pronouncing her name wrong. Spent most of her first year in the MBA program, figuring out what specific part of e-commerce interested her. She paid special attention to retail categories that had not moved in a meaningful way. So that means business models that hadn't really seen any change, right? Maybe she thought she was going to be the great genius who would see the way to fix it up and get it going. During this exploration, Dorkson realized that virtual fitting technology could be the key enabler for a transition to e-commerce of those lagging categories. So Dorkson believed that mass merchandise did not work for most people and that e-commerce effectively solved this problem by offering a larger selection of products at a lower cost. The missing link was allowing people to try on that larger selection. It's like a shirt, right? Like you can't really buy a shirt without trying it on and see if it just fits comfortably on you. So existing virtual fitting tools at the time did not work in a realistic manner. They consisted mostly of photo-on-photo overlapping without really addressing the correct fit or size or comfort level or just generally what it might feel like to wear that product. The tools were too far from mirroring reality and as a consequence did not provide meaningful information to the customer. Proof of this fact was that when online retailers started offering virtual fitting technologies, conversion rates, that means number of people actually switching to online from in-person shopping, did not change. Many other tools were far too complex or impractical, right? Because it has to be something that your average user sitting at their computer with their web browser can actually use. It cannot require any specialized like cameras or something. Some were simply awkward or too complicated. For example, one technology required the person to be nearly naked for a virtual fitting. And I guess a lot of people don't really want to get naked in front of their webcam. They don't know where the image might wind up or something. So these were some of the kinds of things that made existing technology unworkable. So Dorkson took as many startup-oriented courses as she could and spent her spare hours at the engineering school talking to professors and students about computer vision. She thought that computer vision could be the solution to having a robust fitting system at home. The problem was at the time, computer vision required control settings. It had to be done with a kiosk, specific background, specific camera. And even today, laptop cameras are not that good. That's why I actually have a separate high-end commercial-grade camera I'm recording this on. The camera on your laptop is not really that good for anything except maybe simple Zoom calls and stuff. So despite the limitations, Dorkson could envision the perfect solution in her head, and she was ready to get it to work in the real world. So now we're reading here about the eyewear market. During her second year in her graduate studies program, Dorkson refined and narrowed her original vision. She decided to focus the technology on eyewear instead of, I guess, just more generally shoes or jackets or blouses or dresses or stuff like that. She would focus only on eyewear. And these were her reasons. From her talks with engineers, she realized that developing a robust full-body technology would be very time-consuming, taking years of development. And again, then maybe nobody still wants it, so that's a sunk cost, right? It's a lost cost. The elasticity of fabrics made virtual fitting of clothes very complex, and she refused to settle for anything that looked cartoony. Eyewear, in contrast, was made of solid materials, which meant the online fitting process could be far simpler. I still don't agree with that. I've been wearing glasses since I was 12 years old, and I'm telling you, the optician has to do a lot of work to get them to actually fit comfortably on your face. I think I would have told her it's a stupid idea if she would have asked me. Second, the eyewear market was very large, $35 billion in North America, $70 billion globally, but there were no major online players at the time. I wonder if there are any today. Maybe we should go and do a search for that. Let's find out. Virtual fitting of eyewear. And it's good whenever you're reading or studying something, just see if you can maybe extend it a little bit by yourself to figure out what's going on. Virtual fitting of eyewear. Well, I guess they have some, and I will leave it to you to go and play with this by yourself. I'm not going to take time right now, but it seems that other people are pursuing this technology. I don't know now if with artificial intelligence and so on, it might be a little bit easier than in the old days. So in research, she noted a large number of online searches for designer prescription glasses, demonstrating the market demand. She believed she could utilize search engine optimization to quickly build a brand in this space. Third, from a user interaction point of view, creating a three-dimensional virtual image of the full body with a webcam was unnatural. The user had to stand halfway across the room while operating the webcam on the computer. Well, I mean, I guess you have like a wireless mouse now, so that might be possible. But again, how many people actually want to go to the trouble? That's the other issue. Because glasses are expensive. Glasses can be $1,000. And if you're going to spend $1,000 on glasses, you're probably going to be willing to drive to an optician and get them to do it in person. So I'm not really seeing that this is a kind of a viable option for online retailing, right? Online retailing works well for mass production consumer items, like if you're going to buy a kitchen appliance or, I don't know, like maybe even a laptop or something, because every laptop in the world is more or less the same. But glasses are a very customized and very personalized thing. However, the user could capture a video of their face with a webcam while staying in the natural typing position. Dorkson confirmed these hypotheses with a user testing survey. Fourth, Dorkson was concerned that people would have greater privacy concerns about the body than the face. Facial fit technology, was not likely to make people uncomfortable. Right, so I'll leave it to you to go and read the notes here and follow those other references about computer vision and so on. It takes a lot of processing power. Now, we're going to find out together where she went with this, but one option these days, because of cloud computing, you could set it up so that a web page would be the interface and you would upload all the measurements and calculations to the cloud and then have a super powerful computer in the cloud doing it, because most people don't have a laptop. I know I did some stuff with machine vision back in the 80s, and it takes a lot of CPU. In fact, that's basically why we didn't get much going before maybe 2002, 2003, when we had access to cloud computing services. This is how Dorkson's vision evolved and became Ditto, a prescription and non-prescription eyewear, so I guess that's like sunglasses or something, e-commerce company with advanced virtual fitting technology. The name Ditto referred to virtual fitting videos that enabled online customers to try on the glasses virtually. These videos were commonly called Dittos by the company and its users. So finding a co-founder, now she has to get somebody to partner with her and provide some money. So as soon as she started the MBA program, Dorkson began looking for potential co-founders. Personality fit and trust were very important, because if you have business partners that are a little bit disturbed mentally, that's going to be a real problem, right? Two of her closest friends at the school had worked together to co-found a company of their own. Watching her friends work together, motivating each other, and having a great time, Dorkson decided how lonely it would be for a solo entrepreneur. She started pitching Ditto to her classmates in search of a co-founder. But basically, she wants somebody's money, right? She wants somebody to pay for it. After a few weeks, two classmates showed an interest in joining the effort. Both were smart and of a similar professional background. One of them, Lucas, had some experience in marketing, which Dorkson felt was important for the retail company. So I think Lucas might be a player here, right? This is probably a name we should keep track of. I'll share this document out with you at the end as a starting point for your own analysis. Okay, Peanut, what's up? My dog wants to go for a walk. Okay, Peanut, wait. When we're done, we'll go for a walk. Don't worry. So, yeah, so we've gotten up now. Dorkson began making a list of the skill sets she believed that the perfect partner needed to have to fill in the gaps that currently existed in the business. Now, this is not really something you need to present in class, although you can if you like. But I would suggest you're going to maximize your learning out of this case study by pausing your study right now, pausing the video or pausing your reading of the document. Pause and make your own list of what these skill sets might be, do you think? I'll give you my own ideas in class, again, because the video is probably going to run a bit longer. We have another 5 pages of this document to go through. I want to get you guys started on it. But I would suggest you read critically and you try to think ahead by yourself. So what skill sets would her co-founder need? Maybe some background in technology, engineering, machine vision, server hosting, right? Business, the business of running an e-commerce operation. How does the cash flow work? Which lenders might be more amenable to lending financing for it? Right? Make your own list of skill sets there. So according to her assessment, the ideal co-founder would have a technical background with skills that complemented her own. Although Randolph did not fit this criteria, she already knew him very well and trusted him. Let's hope that doesn't blow up in her face. Your enemies are never the ones who are going to hurt you, by the way, right? It's the people you trust that are going to stab you in the back. And he complemented her skills with this marketing background. She considered asking him to join the team and finding a third co-founder with a technical background. Dorkson also had been following some impressive developments in augmented and virtual reality emerging from Russia. Through a classmate, Dorkson was introduced to Andrew Filev. All right, let's keep a track of that name. Let's see what how he develops in our story here. Co-founder and CEO of Reich. And I've actually used Reich. Reich is something that's similar to Trello. Reich is an online collaborative project management and tracking solution. So if he was the founder of it, he must be a pretty good technical guy, I think. Filev, who was well connected to the Russian tech community in Silicon Valley, became an advisor to Dorkson. He suggested that Dorkson meet Sergey Surkov, a software engineer working for Google at the time. So Sergey might play into our story. Let's add him to our little list of things we're keeping track of here. Surkov did not have the specialized expertise in computer vision, but was very talented and could acquire the necessary skills quickly. Dorkson thought it was worth meeting any smart engineer and arranged to meet with Filev and Surkov for brunch. Dorkson pitched the Ditto concept to Surkov, who replied the idea was very cool but impossible to build or not feasible in the way Dorkson was describing it. Now, guys, if you gentlemen or ladies ever wind up in this situation, I'm going to tell you some things. Number one, be aware that when you tell people your ideas, they can take them and steal them and build the business before you do, right? If it's a good idea and you tell it to somebody else, and if they maybe have some family connections with some money, don't be surprised if you open Business Insider magazine next week and you see that your idea is now being launched as a startup by this other person. And the other thing, if the other person is telling Dorkson it's a stupid idea, this is not part of your case study. I'm just expanding your knowledge of the world. It could be because they want to develop that idea themselves and they want to get Dorkson to kind of get discouraged and not pursue it while they're developing it. I would be cautious about who I tell my ideas to. So anyway, according to Surkov, the idea was not feasible, at least in Dorkson's vision of how to present it. Immediately after his pessimistic response, Surkov started diving in the technical specifics of what could be done, the key limitations they would need to consider, and how he could do it. As time went by, Surkov decided to quit his job in order to pursue an entrepreneurial path. Dorkson and Surkov met more frequently, and he quickly started building software and prototypes to test various hypotheses we had about the technology. Now, of course, this is being done... When was the year for this again? 2013 is our timeline here. Now, in 2021, 2022, right, the current year we're going into now, right, next month or so, in 90 days, it'll be 2022. We now have access to a lot more things developed over the last 10 years, right? So we have things like Azure, machine learning labs, AI as a service. So if I were going to address this business right now, my thinking would be to do it as an artificial intelligence machine learning venture. Now, the problem with that is you need to have training data sets and you need to have enough people who have used this service and we could get their feedback on what kind of classes were comfortable for them or not. But I would still be thinking maybe for my first 100 customers or so, I might even give them the fitting service for free in exchange for them giving me feedback, which I could use to train my AI bot. Again, I'm just telling you guys this stuff so as you go into business and start working with potentially business development concerns, I want you to be aware of the technology aspects as well as the business aspects. All right, where did we leave ourselves off here? Right, so yeah, he started playing around. He started doing mock-ups and prototypes of different code bases. Yeah, so that's where we left off there. At the same time, during one of her classes at the engineering school, Dorkson met Laura Sindam, a PhD student in computer vision. So let's keep track of that name. And I had also mentioned before, I sort of haven't been doing it for the last couple of minutes, but you can, in addition to making your table, you can also tag certain key lines so you can go and generate them into your index. So just, it's your analysis, right? I'm just showing you things you can do. But I'm going to tag that line, and I'm going to go up to here. Oops. and references, and you remember which one it was, mark entry. Now, once again, we've got all these tags showing up. I could go and turn them off. Well, they're not really hurting me right now, but I could go to home and I could click on that little music symbol thing, reveal formatting codes, to hide that if I wanted to. So Durkerson started pitching ideas to Syndham, our PhD computer vision student. Actually, I'm going to turn it off. It's irritating. To ask her if these ideas were feasible. Once again, she's giving her ideas to somebody else who she does not have any control over. Be cautious. I hope that doesn't blow up in her face. I've seen it blow up in other people's faces, by the way. So Syndham was very positive about Durkerson's ideas and did not express any concerns about the technology, seemed very engaged with the venture. Syndham did not have any work experience outside of academia, and Durkerson had not seen specific developments for the virtual fitting technology from her. Considering Syndham's background, Durkerson thought she could be the perfect partner for the challenges Ditto presented, but she did not have any evidence to support this. This is an important decision, and Durkerson felt that she had to formalize the relationship with one of her prospects soon or risk losing them all. Why one of them and not all of them, I'm not really sure, but anyway, let's keep going here. Building the team. Durkerson had also had to define and start building the business operations for the beginning, for the business, right? The basic purchasing process called for a well-choreographed routine. Choreography is like dancers dancing in a music video or something. Choreography just means organizing, in this case, business processes so they work together. The customer placed an online order for a pair of prescription glasses and then supplied a lens prescription, right? So you go to the optician, she gives you the prescription for the glasses, how thick they need to be and all that, and then the optician makes the glasses and the lenses based on the optician's prescription, on the eye doctor's prescription. Eye doctor is the one who tests your eyes and writes the prescription for your glasses. Optician is a mechanic whose specialty is building glasses. Ditto ordered the brand and model directly from the supplier, which sent the glasses frame to Ditto's laboratory. The laboratory would then add the lenses according to the prescription, pre-adjust the frame, and then ship the glasses to the customer. So Durkerson started building relationships with the suppliers, setting up fulfillment. That means delivery logistics, including finding a laboratory and a warehouse. I mean, to me, it would have made more sense to set up the lab, because a laboratory, the assembly area, the lab in this case, it's not like where they do chemical experiments. It's just the machine shop where they build the glasses frame. To me, it would make more sense to have that in the same building as the warehouse to save cost and time delays of transporting things around. After a rough start, 1 year of hard work, and several trips to New York City in the Midwest, Durkerson convinced 12 major eyewear brands to sell through Ditto. So now she's creating partnerships and alliances with big brands so they can kind of promote her product, right? She's going to get them to be a business partner and to help her sell her product. And presumably she's going to give them some percentage of the sales to give them an incentive to promote her product. More importantly, she negotiated contracts that allow Ditto to keep little or no inventory by accessing real-time inventory information from the suppliers, which they typically did not provide to anyone outside of their companies. Now Dorkson needed to set up fulfillment, that is delivery logistics, following the example of Zappos, an online shoe and clothing company that initially fulfilled from San Francisco. She started looking for lens laboratories in the San Francisco area. It seemed logical to have the fulfillment center in the same area as the rest of the team. Building an entire lens laboratory exclusively for Ditto made no sense in terms of cost. This would require a substantial investment in equipment because they have to have a bunch of specialized mechanical grinding wheels and drills and saws and all the stuff you need to machine metal, but now it's even more complicated because you're grinding glass lenses as well. In addition to certifications from the government, because if you're going to do anything involving health or any kind of medical devices, it has to be certified by government regulators as being properly done and in a way that's going to properly protect people's health. So the plan was to partner with an existing laboratory that would cut and fit the prescription glass lenses. So now she doesn't need to get licensed herself because an existing laboratory is going to do that work. I guess they're going to make their money from front-ending the virtual fitting technology and delivering to the customer, and they're outsourcing the issues of manufacturing the frames and fitting the lenses to other partners. In the following weeks, Dorkson visited almost every laboratory in the Bay Area and made a list with the specifications she was looking for in a particular lab. An important requirement was the ability to carry out electronic ordering. Now, in 2022, that's kind of a more standard thing. I guess in 2013, perhaps the internet was not as embedded as part of the business process fulfillment tool as it is now. The lens laboratory industry at the time was fairly unsophisticated, so this requirement greatly limited the list of potential candidates. Dorkson started analyzing the logistics chain and estimating the cost of operations. Most of the suppliers' warehouses were in the Midwest, so the frames would go from the Midwest to California where the lenses were added, and from there to be shipped to the customer. The frames would take 3 to 5 days to get from the suppliers in the Midwest to Ditto's fulfillment center in California. And once again, I'm not doing this exhaustively, but I'm just dropping in a little reminder that if you like to do so, if it helps you, you can capture whatever you regard as being key snippets of text, and at the end I'll show you how to generate your table of references. So delivering to a customer in New York would take a minimum of 6 to 8 days, far longer than Dorkson believed could be considered a good customer experience. Because if you need glasses, you want them pretty quickly, right? You don't really want to wait a couple of weeks to get your glasses. Although even if you order them from an optician shop, you might still be waiting, 10 days or something to get them. So I'm not sure that 6 to 8 days is longer than would be a normal in-store experience. After analyzing several alternatives, Dorkson came to the conclusion that Ditto needed a second location in the Midwest for a fulfillment delivery center. Well, again, how is that really going to work? Think critically through this, because they have to take the customer's orders, and I guess they're shipping those customer orders, the fitting prescription, to an external lab partner to do the fitting. So I guess that could kind of work, right? They would probably want to find another partner in the Midwest because the whole purpose of doing that is to not waste time shipping the product around. But I guess probably they could find another local supplier that would do that mechanical machining of the glasses and lenses. Ideally, the location had to be within an hour of Kentucky, where UPS Airlines is headquartered, or Memphis, Tennessee. The location of FedEx's corporate headquarters. Now, why they would need to be close to the corporate headquarters, I'm not really sure. I would think that any FedEx office anywhere in the world would do the same job. That's kind of an odd detail to me. In this way, the new location would shorten the fulfillment time as well as reduce overhead costs. Around the same time, Dorkson's father, Tom Endres, was retired as a general manager at Crescent Plastics, a plastic business. When Dirksen started assessing laboratories in the Midwest, her father would sometimes carry out the initial visit. Being newly retired with some free time, he did an informal market survey with optometrists, asking them what was the best laboratory in the area. You're not going to believe this, but even people in Illinois and Kentucky are using this lab in Indiana called Singer Optical. And they might become a part of our story here, so let's keep track of Singer Optical. Because remember, we read at the beginning she's got some issues with some lawsuits going on, so we're reading this being intentional and on purpose to figure out what's going on with that. I went in there today, and these two brothers that run it seem excellent. Maybe these lawsuits can involve them. I somehow get the feeling it might. Their operations are more sophisticated than the other places. Remember, this is the father talking now, had seen. Being from Evansville, Dirksen realized she could also leverage her personal network there to hire a great team. To top it off, Evansville was less than a 2-hour drive to Louisville's UPS airline headquarters. And again, why she needs to be close to the airline headquarters, it's just not at all clear to me what's going on with that. So Dirksen created a pitch deck, meaning a PowerPoint presentation, got introductions to dozens of venture capital firms, and applied to several business plan competitions. However, every time she pitched Ditto, venture capitalists would question Endress's involvement in the business. So Endress was the dad, right? So why would they be upset about the fact that Endress was involved in the business? He hasn't done any bad thing to anybody. So why was the fact that he retired from Crescent Plastics such a pain point for them? That makes no sense to me. As Dirksen recalled, each one of them had seen investments go sideways because of family dynamics, cause personal disputes or resentment with the other employees. Well, I still don't get it. I'm not sure. I mean, I've seen some business startups, and I've been involved in starting some businesses. I really don't get what's the connection there. Contrary to potential investors, Dirksen saw her father in his role as vice president of operations. Yeah, because I mean, the guy's had 30 plus years experience as an executive of a plastics company, so I'd say he's very well qualified to be a guiding hand in this operation. As one of the company's key employees and one of the few people she trusted to create the culture she wanted in the Indiana operations, right? So let's keep track of the fact that the stuff's going on in Indiana now. And to save time, I'm not going to keep marking this as an index, but I'll welcome you to do that if you think it helps you to organize your thinking. Because our video is already at 40 minutes, so I just want to get through this. In only a few months, Endress, the dad, was helping Dirksen build a team in Evansville and scale make larger operations. Endress was running the fulfillment center like clockwork. His 30 years of experience as a manager, his knowledge of the plastics cutting business were what they needed, because they'd already figured he's already made all of the mistakes, right? He doesn't have to make the mistakes again, which the basic thing when you hire a new person into a new job, the first couple of years they're going to make mistakes till they figure out how to get it right. Investors, however, remain troubled. Why exactly? What is there about him that's bothering them? Some were concerned that Dorkson would play favorites within. How exactly? Pay favorites and do what? Or develop a reputation externally as daddy's girl? Yeah, that generally means if a rich parent sort of gives their kid money to get a business started, sort of like Donald Trump's father gave him $80 million to start his real estate back in the 80s. But Dorkson actually started this business herself, so I'm really having trouble latching on to what that means. So Dorkson decided to start recruiting candidates for general manager of Ditto's Evansville location. She wanted to interview at least a dozen candidates, but could not find that many people who wanted to live in a little village like Evansville. Yeah, because if you're a big executive, you want to live in LA or New York, right? You don't really want to go to some little fishing village in Kentucky. And had the qualification she was looking for. After numerous interviews, and plus it's a startup, so there's no guarantee that the business is going to succeed, right? Somebody's not going to leave a good paying, secure job in New York to come and live in Evansville for a business that might go out of business next week. After numerous interviews, Dorkson had one potential candidate, Lisa Carroll. All right, let's keep track of Lisa here. Carroll had 4 years of management experience, managing one of the warehouse operations for a glass manufacturing company. She was not very excited about moving to Evansville, and to be honest, I don't think I would be either, so there's that. She said she would do it for a higher salary. With the salary bump, Carol's salary would be much higher than Endress's salary. Dorkson's trust in her father, paired with this experience in the field and Carol's higher salary requirement, made Dorkson question if this was the right decision. So now I think we're getting to the meat of it. I think we're starting to figure out what might be the basis of the issues here. So let's go here and make another table up at the top, another list. And say, whoops, I want to get out of the table. The funding process moved forward so that by November 2010, Dorkson had 6 potential investors interested in funding her company. 3 of them had made it clear they would not invest if there was a family member on the team. Dumb. I don't know. That's stupid in my opinion. I don't know what's wrong with them, but anyway. Of the remaining 3 venture capitalists, 1 potential investor, Howard Hartenbaum. And once again, just to pick it up, I'm going to leave it to you to finish building your little summary table, right? I've gotten you started. You probably want to add that name to your list of people you're keeping track of. From August Capital showed some flexibility. He asked Dorkson, could you fire him if needed? If you could, then we might accept it. Hartenbaum was still reticent, and Dorkson was concerned about the issue becoming a point of friction in the future. Now, if it would have been me, my answer to that would have been, I know that, what was the dad's name again? Endress. I know that Endress, and she doesn't have to call him my father, she could just say Endress. We know that Endress has been a senior executive in a plastics company for 30 years. Mr. Venture Capitalist, what were you doing 30 years ago? Playing with your toys in the sandbox at school? While she was still in discussions with other firms, to date Dorkson had only received 1 term sheet with a firm offer to fund the company. This term sheet was from one of the top venture capital firms in Silicon Valley, but it was conditional on kicking her dad out the door. Of course, if they hire somebody else, they're going to have to pay them more, right? Dorkson was certain that her father was the best person Ditto could find for the job. However, the company needed the funding, and only 1 other investor had shown an openness to accepting Endress on the team. The product launch, after a year of hard work and many obstacles and delays, Ditto.com officially launched on April the 26th, 2012. The first weeks were overwhelming with very positive response from customers, higher sales than expected. The product was live, but there was still a lot of room for improvement. I think people have this notion that anytime you launch a new product, the doors are just, no, they don't. They think the company is going to go bankrupt because nobody will buy your stupid stuff. Again, I'm not totally sure who wrote this stuff. It doesn't really mesh with my experience of what I've seen, but their worry isn't getting too busy. It's not having any business. And how you'll control your explosive growth. It's just not true for most companies, even successful ones. Our first 6 months were incredibly up and down. Acquiring customers consistently is tougher than building a great product. The amount of work was prodigious means a lot. The team prioritized the workload and quickly tackled key problems. With the website launched, only 50% of people who attempted to use the try-on technology were successful. Ouch, I wonder why that is. Maybe the server was overloaded? After a few months, Ditto's success rate grew to more than 80%. The team also started measuring the quality of the Ditto's virtual fitting videos and improving them. On the marketing side, Dorkson hired an experienced product manager who built the company's analytics and optimized the search engine optimization. Shortly thereafter, efforts started translating into results, more traffic, higher conversion, more sales, increasing efficiency. Things were going well for Ditto, the business was healthy and growing, and perhaps most importantly, the customers were very excited. They were shouting with happiness, it seems. How they know that they were raving, I don't really know, but it says here they did. In only a few months, more than 50,000 users had created Dittos. The sales conversion rate was 5 times higher than industry average, 5% for Ditto versus 1% average for multi-brand e-commerce eyewear. Returns were 5 times lower, right? So people were not returning the product. They were happy with it. And the team had grown to 16 people in 2 locations. Now, here we get to our legal trouble. In early 2013, Dorkson received an unexpected email from a high school friend working at a law firm in Indianapolis. Alarmed, Dorkson's friend asked her, "Do you know you've just been sued?" How does somebody know that they've not been sued? Like they needed this lawyer from Indianapolis to tell them? Dorkson immediately contacted her lawyers to figure out what was going on. Again, there's something very odd about this whole story. There's just little details that don't really seem like things that happen in the real world. But anyway. Dorkson immediately contacted her lawyers to figure out what was going on. The lawsuit was filed by 1-800-CONTACT. Seriously? The company was a division of WellPoint Health Networks, a corporation that reported $61 billion. Jesus, that's a lot of money. Really, they did? In 2012, it ran Blue Cross, Blue Shield, and Anthem. Those are health insurance providers, right? I think through college, you guys have some sort of health insurance, so that's the similar type of thing. So WellPoint had acquired 1-800-CONTACTS for close to $900 million in 2012. This 1-800-CONTACTS sold contact lenses, but it expanded in June 2011 with Glasses.com, a direct competitor of Ditto. Before launching Ditto, Dorkson and the team had thoroughly investigated the existing intellectual property patents in the space. So you guys know what a patent is, right? If I invent some new invention, like this, for example, it's a device and it has ink and you can put it on paper and you can write with it. So I can patent this, so if anybody else tries to make a pen, I can sue them. I'm making a joke, right? But you get the idea of what a patent is. A patent is your assertion, right? Your statement that you're the first one to come up with a new or unique idea. And if you're awarded a patent, if anybody else tries to make that same product, you can go and sue them. So anyway, the team had investigated the patents in place. There were over 300 patents in augmented reality. The advice from Ditto's lawyers was to check that Ditto's technology did not replicate anything exactly as was described in those patents.
Do you think maybe one of these other people she told her ideas about back in university went out and wrote some patents on them? Because you don't need to have a working product to make a patent, right? I can describe a patent, and if it makes sense according to the patent office, I don't actually need to have a working prototype. Well, anyway. So if any of you guys get your great idea, go out and patent it before you tell anybody. Dorkson recalled the results of their analysis. Before we launched, we had done our homework on what intellectual property patents existed in the space. And we said, okay, good. No one is approaching virtual try-on in this way. We've done it. So we ended up filing for 2 patents even before we had a website. That was a good decision. The problem is it takes 2 to 3 years for a patent to be issued. So at the time the lawsuit hit, we were still waiting to hear back on our patents. In that time frame, after your application, but before your patents issue, you were vulnerable, right? Somebody else might somehow, right? They might beat you to the punch. So Dorkerson also found out that the executive team of 1-800-Contacts had created their own Dittos. Oh, so they had used Ditto.com to create their own Dittos. Maybe stealing their... Because intellectual capital is not just a patent. Intellectual capital can be anything which is an idea that you run a business on, right? It can be a plan, a prototype, a website, a design, a marketing phrase. Right? Intellectual capital can be pretty much anything. Even the experience of walking through on their website, right, is kind of in a sense they could be stealing their intellectual capital, which is their practices they learned about how to create a good virtual fitting eyewear thing online. This happened about a month before 1-800-Contacts purchased the patent they were using to sue. So they purchased the patent. They didn't develop the technology themselves. Who did they purchase the patent from, do you think? Maybe one of these ones, Lucas, I don't know, did he join up with her in the end? I can't remember. When you go through and study this, fill out the details more completely. I know she talked to him. I guess she probably hooked up with him. I can't remember the resolution of it. But any of these people, like Laura, did Laura actually hook up with them? Maybe one of these people went and filed a patent. It's not hard. I remember when I was at the IBM lab, we were under an expectation, right? Like you were supposed to file at least a couple of patents a year. And it didn't have to be on something amazing like building a spaceship to go to another planet or something. It could just be anything that introduces any new element to an idea. So it could be like a novel approach to an algorithm or something. So filing a patent is, I don't know what's the fee, $350 or something. Well, I mean, we had lawyers at the lab who did that stuff for us. But the point I'm making is somebody filed the damn patent and 1-800-Contacts bought it. Now, the owner of the patent can sell it, right? Like a website. I have websites I set up for my real estate stuff. And some of them are pretty good names like GTA Realtor and stuff like that. I have offers sometimes. People say, well, I'll buy your website name for $1,000. I say, it's my website name. Go away, you're bothering me. But the point is, somebody who owned that patent could sell it just like you could sell any other product. So Dorkson was convinced that Ditto's technology did not infringe upon pre-existing patent that 1-800-Contacts had bought. However, she knew it did not matter. Products have nothing to do with intellectual property law, and as long as lawyers are making money off of something, they'll drag it out as long as you have money to keep paying them. And if this 1-800-Contacts, what do they have, like $50 billion or something? They could just, keep launching lawsuits till this Ditto.com ran out of money to keep defending it. So defending their position would cost Ditto an estimated $2 to $3 million and could take 2 years of work, which would detract from their spending time on their main core business. To make things worse, 2 weeks after being served with 1-800-Contacts lawsuit, Ditto was sued again for patent infringement. So that means it's the same thing. I'm not sure what's the difference. That just means you made a product which is stepping on somebody else's patent. Dorkson explained her reaction. I realized it doesn't matter if you infringe. All it takes is a allegation, right? Somebody just has to say you did, then it's up to you to defend it. And I will leave it to you guys to please go and study these other links down here as well and talk about them in your presentation. The second lawsuit came from Lennon Imaging Technology. And once again, those are things you can be capturing in your issues table up at the top, and you can be dropping into your references. I'll show you at the end how to generate your references table from the references tag we captured, right? So that might sort of help you in terms of, and if you're at work, if you're like a project manager, for example, and you might be analyzing 5 or 10 documents like this every day, little tricks like this can help. They can make it a bit easier to keep track of all the stuff you need to organize. After doing some research, Dorkerson concluded that the lawsuit was probably not of a competitive nature like the one from WellPoint. Instead, this challenge seemed to come from a patent monetization firm known as a patent troll farm, which had sued a number of other people and companies. Dorkson thought that the company was probably looking for a settlement slightly lower than the cost of fighting the lawsuit, which would be $100,000. My computer is getting very sluggish. Jeez, why is this not copying here? Anyway, you get the idea. Just put this up in your... Yeah, I don't know. For some reason, my copying thing isn't working. But just bring that up and put it on your issues list. So Ditto's lawyers communicated first with 1-800-CONTACTS to find a possible solution. As Dorkson expected, 1-800-CONTACTS was only interested in an injunction. That is a legal statement saying that Ditto has to stop using the technology, requiring Ditto stop using the technology. For Dorkson, this meant Ditto had to close its operations. Ditto was in serious trouble. Even if the plaintiffs agreed to settle, Ditto did not have enough money to pay them. Dorkson reached out to her early investors who explained to her that raising more funds was not a solution. Dorkson understood that response very clearly. She knew that a lawsuit would not go away. No matter how much money Dorkson could find, 1-800-CONTACTS has more money to keep suing them. She believed this lawsuit would keep draining Ditto until it was completely out of business. She even feared the company would keep buying more patents to pile on litigation costs. Dorkson tried to find a law firm to take on Ditto's case on a contingency basis, meaning getting paid only if they successfully win. She talked to 72 different law firms. Some of them offered a free letter of opinion or were willing to volunteer a few hours, but none would take the big case for equity, meaning for a piece of the potential money they might win at the end. They want to get paid cash up front. You should too. Don't work for free. 3 years of hard work seemed to be going to waste. Dorkson was devastated. My co-founder and I were sitting outside of the lawyers' offices. We just couldn't even look at each other. I was fighting back tears. We were so emotionally wrought. After all of this, we were going to have to sell our company for peanuts. Sorry, Peanut. Nothing personal. This is Peanut, by the way. Peanut, say hello. So we just looked around when I said peanuts, but this is not the peanut we're talking about. So a sale process. Okay, Peanut, go back to bed. Sorry for bothering you. Over the course of the next couple of months, Dorkerson started a sale process. Ditto soon had 4 strategic buyers interested in Ditto. They offered a $3 to $4 million valuation for Ditto and wanted to employ Dorkson with a good salary after the acquisition. The firms also offered employment for her engineering team, but did not want to keep the Indiana's team on staff. Given the pending lawsuit, however, this would be a positive outcome for investors, returning to them all of their investment and a small return. The founders would earn a few $100,000 each. Dorkson's investors did not intervene and left the final decision about whether to sell the company to the management team. They believe the team and their vision, and once again, please go and read more about this right here. But we're concerned about whether Dorkson and her team had the energy and resources to fight a protracted legal battle. Dorkson saw selling the company as the logical option given the predicament, but struggled to reconcile herself with the injustice of the situation. Fighting the patent trolls, in parallel, she channeled her frustration into action, becoming an activist for a patent reform and seeking support for the Ditto case. Consequently, Electronic Frontier Foundation, a nonprofit organization that fights bad litigation, and other similar organizations rallied around Ditto and lent Dorkson public support. The Ditto team also ran an Indiegogo crowdfunding campaign to create awareness of the patent situation and raise funds for legal expenses by selling t-shirts that said, "I beat the trolls." A partnership opportunity. At an intellectual property regulation conference, Dorkson met Erich Sprangelberg, the founder of IP-NAV, one of the largest patent monetization firms in the country. Spagenberg approached Dorkson with a bold proposal. He offered to handle both the lawsuits against Ditto in exchange for $1 million in Ditto's equity. So he'd basically get shares in the company. At the time, Dorkson was spending up to 70 hours per week dealing with Ditto's legal matters and was eager to have more time to focus on the day-to-day operations of the business. Dorkson was intrigued by Spangenberg's proposal, but she was very wary about partnering with him, because then he'll be an owner of a piece of the company. Now, how much $1 million would be, it's not really clear since we don't know the total value of the company. But if he got something like more than 50% of the shares, if somebody owns more than 50% of the shares of a company, effectively they can control the company, right? They can make all the decisions. She saw every player in the patent troll industry as immoral. Although IP-NAV was not in the business of suing startups, the firm was still considered part of the industry that Dorkson had publicly admonished for taking down Ditto. That Dorkson had publicly acknowledged, admonished. That means like punished or told them off. Dorkson conducted her due diligence on Spangenberg's firm and spoke with companies he had invested in previously. These companies gave him positive reviews, and Dorkson was convinced that his primary motivation in this deal was to profit from his investment in Ditto. Well, of course he wants to profit. Why else would he be doing it? However, she knew that even if she accepted his proposal, the company could still run out of funds before the case was settled. Ditto had less than $500,000 left in the bank at the time. Dorkson had already laid off 6 employees, and the founders had stopped taking a salary. That's kind of interesting. So how are they paying their mortgage and food then? To lower Ditto's expenses. Dorkson and her co-founder were torn. Should they sell the company they'd built with so much effort? They were already a few months into the sale process. The alternative was partnering with Spangenberg to fight back against the litigation, the lawsuit. This was a controversial move that would put Dorkson's credibility at risk with no guarantee of a positive outcome. Dorkson had to make a decision quickly as Ditto was running out of cash, and her team could not continue to fight the legal battle on their own. All right, guys, so here's your case study for this week. What do you think Dorkson should do and why? Give your analysis. If you were in this position, what would you do? I guess the basic summary, and it's up to you, right, because it's your case study, so pretty much whatever you choose to do with it is right. But some questions you might consider here. If you were in Dorkson's position, what would you do?
All right, guys, go to work on this. We'll see you in class on Wednesday. Enjoy your weekend. Take care. Bye. Have a nice one. I gotta go and walk Peanut now.